Hello, and welcome to a webinar called Helping People Find Good Legal Information, a presentation for community workers in Ontario from CLEO. I just wanted to once again let you know that this webinar is for general information purposes only and not the forum to ask for legal advice or discuss an individual situation in detail. My name is Fiona McCool, and I'll be your facilitator for today. Before I hand things over to our presenters, I wanted to just introduce them briefly. Michelle Cater is the Community Outreach Manager at CLEO, the Community Legal Education Ontario, and Rebecca Stolberg is the Project Manager and Legal Content Developer for CLEO's Steps to Justice website. And without further ado, I'd like to pass things over to them with my thanks.
Thank you so much, Fiona. This is Michelle Cater, and I'll be the first one on the webinar today, and then I'll pass it along to Rebecca. So we just wanted to thank you all for coming today. We had so many people sign up, so we're really excited that you're interested in this material, and we're excited that you could take the time today to join us. So we're going to, just before we start the webinar, we're going to just launch a few polls to get a sense of who we have here and your knowledge sort of CLEO and of Steps to Justice, our new site. So I'm just going to launch the first poll, and you can start answering it. So have you ever ordered print copies of CLEO's legal information resources for your clients? So it's just a simple yes or no, and please be honest. Don't worry if you haven't ordered them. So if you could just tell us, I can see that it's tabulating. I'm just going to wait a few seconds here to let all of you get in your responses.
And again, just to remind those of you who might be new to the webinar, you're going to be clicking on your screen to vote rather than answering it in the chat.
So I'm actually seeing almost about half and half, which is really great to hear, really great to see. So yeah, so 54% have ordered and 45 haven't. So that's fantastic. So about half of you are doing that. Still tabulating, but I'm going to go. We get the gist that it's about 50%. So I'm going to go to the next poll here. So the next poll is: have you used CLEO's newest website, Steps to Justice, which is stepstojustice.ca, to find legal information? So we know you're here today to learn all about Steps to Justice, which is great. But we want to know, maybe in preparation for the webinar, have you used it, or in your work already? It was launched in January, so it's been out for about 6 months. So I can see that the votes are tabulating. So I'm just going to skip to the results here. And so it looks like about 20% of you already have, which is fantastic, and 80% of you haven't. But after today, I bet that number is going to totally shoot up there, so that all of you will see how useful it is. So that's great. That's good. You're in the right place to learn all about it. And then I'm going to launch the last poll. So the last poll is: have you ever used CLEO's website? So of course, CLEO has been around for 40 years, and our website has been around for several of those, not all of those 40 years obviously, but it's been around for a while. So let's see how many people have used CLEO's website, cleo.on.ca. Just going to wait a minute here. So I can see at about 65% of you have and 35 haven't. So that's great. Most of you, 2/3 of you, are using it, which is fantastic to see. All right. So we're just going to move on to the goals for today. So on your screen, you should be able to see that our goals. Just going to leave it for 1 second here. We're going to provide a brief overview of CLEO, discuss the importance of legal information, talk about this difference between legal information and legal advice, and then Rebecca's going to launch into Steps to Justice, about what the project is, understanding what it offers, and helping you navigate the site. And then we're going to do some case scenarios at the end to help you really try something practical that will be the way that you will use it from here on in. So you can chat in any questions that you have during the webinar, as Fiona said. So we're just going to launch into a bit of an overview of CLEO. So CLEO, as many of you know, has expertise in producing legal information. So all of our information is written by the CLEO lawyers, and then it is edited by plain language editors, so that all of it should be at about the grade 8 reading level, as well as designed very clearly for ease of use. And all of our information focuses on the needs of low-income and marginalized communities. So we have the same mandate as many of you have, being community workers and social service workers across the province. The people that we serve and that we write for is the same audience as you serve. We have the same audience as the other community legal clinics who do direct service. So we are a community legal clinic, but we don't see clients directly. What we do is produce this legal information. So we have 70 different pieces of legal information or resources on different legal topics such as housing law, family law, social assistance, immigration, and others. And the information is available both in print and online. So we talked about, are people ordering our copies? So those copies can be ordered. Many of our resources are in print, and the resources can be made available for free, and the shipping is free. And then we have certain resources available in other languages as well. And then we have a few other projects and research that I just wanted to mention. So what I'm showing you now is our homepage, the CLEO homepage. And before I talk about a few of our other projects and research, I just wanted to highlight the bottom of the screen there, which is the legal topics. So if you're looking for information from CLEO on any of these topics, you would simply click on the topic that you're interested in, and you would see the listing of our resources there. And if you're not sure whether we have a resource on the topic you're looking for, you can simply use the keyword search bar in the top right-hand corner to find something. So that's probably where you'd spend most of your time on our site. I did want to point out a couple of other key helpful features. One is the bright orange button on the top right, which is how you order online for free. So that's where you would set up an account with us, and you usually get your resources within about 10 days. No matter where you are in the province, which is great. So if you have a resource center or a front desk or a place where clients come in, you can set out those resources there so that clients can easily take them. Hopefully you'll have them in your offices as well. When you see clients one-on-one, you can simply go through a resource with them and highlight some things, or if you don't want to order copies, you can always print out the materials if you get them online. So pointing out, if you wanted to just see a snapshot of all of the legal resources that we have, there's something called our Legal Resources Catalog. So you can just click on there and it will give you a PDF. And of course, our catalog changes from time to time as resources go out of date. We pull them down, our lawyers redo them and bring them up to date, and we put them back up. So check that catalog. It changes about once a month. So if you want to see our latest offerings, that's the place to go. The next bit, so I did mention that we have some research and projects. So on the top navigation bar, I've just simply clicked on, this is a screenshot of me clicking on research and projects. And there are several there for you to look at, but I wanted to highlight a couple of them. The first one that I wanted to highlight is called Connecting Communities. And so if we were live here and I just simply clicked on Connecting Communities, it'll take you to a page that talks about what this project is. So it would be hopefully of interest to many of you. It's for community service organizations, social service organizations that want to access training in legal information for their workers. So this is a program where CLEO helps you to get funding from the Law Foundation of Ontario to get legal training in a certain topic for the workers. So not for clients themselves, but for workers. And the focus of Connecting Communities is to reach workers who work in rural and remote areas or in communities where English and French are not the primary language, so communities where there's other languages spoken. So if this sounds interesting to you, to be helped through a granting process, CLEO helps with the whole process of granting. To receive this money, please do get in touch with us, and we will put you in touch with our colleague Brenda Donor, who is in charge of Connecting Communities. Another website that we have that I wanted to let you know about is called the CLEO Learning Exchange. So you can see that from the CLEO main site there. So if you click on CLEO Learning Exchange, it takes you to this website. And this website, I wanted to point out that it has something called the CLEO Toolbox. And a lot of the information that we talk about here today, how to do it, the process, is written up here in very easy language in the toolbox. So once you're done with the webinar, take a look at that toolbox because it has some really good tools that you can print out and that you can follow along with in terms of helping people find legal information. So I did want to alert you to that. And then going back to the main page, the last thing I wanted to point out was your legal rights. So if you click on that, it takes you to our Your Legal Rights website. And Your Legal Rights is an online library of legal resources written by organizations across Ontario. So these resources are not just written by CLEO and our lawyers. They're written by many different organizations across the province. Maybe some of you work for places that have their resources on our site. So you can look for resources by producing organization, by topic, by language, by audience. There's lots of different ways to look for resources that are out there. And some of the resources might be PDFs or websites or brochures or other types of information. So check out that library. And Your Legal Rights is also great because it has a services map of services across Ontario. And it also has a news feed. So you can, if you work in immigration, for example, if you work with newcomers, you can sign up to get that news feed on immigration and refugee law, and you'll be sent news from Your Legal Rights that highlights articles and conferences and events and trainings that have to do with immigration law. So, and Your Legal Rights as well has information in a few other topics that CLEO doesn't have information on. So those topics are education law, environmental law, and wills and estates. Immigration and refugee law, we do have some information, but there's a few more offerings here on Your Legal Rights. So I did want to just talk a little bit. We're talking here about providing people with good legal information. And so what is legal information? So legal information is information that describes people's rights and responsibilities under the law. And in that information, it can help you to help a person identify when a problem has a legal aspect. So lots of people think that if they have, bad credit, for example, it's purely a financial problem, but it has a legal aspect to it. So if you're reading some information about it and sharing that, that can really highlight to people, hey, this has a legal aspect. I have to look for some legal information to help someone about this. Legal information often explains what a legal process is, so if someone has to go to court or a tribunal or a mediation, or what the steps, forms, and things that they might have to fill out, documents that they have to complete, so it helps people understand what the process is. And it also explains where people can get more help. So that's basically what we're talking about when we talk about legal information. And why it's important is if people have the legal information they need in a timely manner, it will allow them to figure out what to decide in an informed way what steps they should take to deal with this problem. And it also, people have the information in a timely manner, it can help prevent problems from getting worse. So legal information is very important, and you are very important people to know about where to find this reliable information because you're all community workers that are already connected with people. They're coming to you with their job searches, with their questions about being newcomers. They're coming to you for training. They're coming to you with their health problems. They're coming to you for lots of different reasons, and they're telling you what's happening in their lives, and they're identifying some problems that have these legal aspects. So we want to do this training and this webinar for you because people are connected to you, you are a trusted person in their life, and they feel safe telling you what's going on. So that's why we're coming to you with this training. And the last piece that I'm going to talk about is a difference between legal information and legal advice. So what we are talking about here today is all legal information. We can't train you in 75 minutes to be a lawyer, of course, but what we can do is just to help you figure out what information you can give to people and then where you draw the line in terms of not going into legal advice. So we have a chart here on the left that talks about legal information. And so legal information is general and it doesn't address one person's specific set of circumstances. So you would give, if two people came up to you and they had totally different scenarios, but they're both dealing with eviction, you're going to give them the same information about what eviction is and what the process is and what some of the next steps that they might take. But it doesn't, legal information won't state whether it applies to one specific person's situation. As we said, it's quite general. And also good legal information is going to indicate how people can get legal help. So legal information is totally within the realm of something that you can do as a community worker. You can give people legal information. Where we don't want you to tread is into this territory of legal advice. So legal advice is quite different. It's given to one person by a licensed legal professional like a lawyer or a paralegal or a community legal worker who's under the supervision of a lawyer, or a law student who is under the supervision of a lawyer. And it's very specific and confidential to that one person's situation. And the legal professional is going to use their judgment based on the facts at hand to give the pros and cons of what different options are that people could pursue, and then they're going to give probably give a specific recommendation to someone. So legal advice is going to tell someone, yes, this information applies to you, and and they're going to help you interpret how the legal rules apply to your specific situation. So this all sounds quite complicated in the legal advice realm, and you have to have a lot of specific legal knowledge to do this. So we leave that up to the legal professionals. So I'm just going to give you one example in terms of a short scenario and the two different ways that you could respond to someone. So someone comes up to you and says, I received an eviction notice from my landlord because I haven't been paying my rent on time. Will I definitely have to leave? So that's a specific question, a specific person situation. So we don't want you to, that's why we've written it in red, don't give someone a specific recommendation and tell them what the outcome is going to be. So if you say, we don't want you to say to them, no, you won't have to leave. You should fight the eviction by going to the landlord and tenant board, and they will give you another chance. If you tell them that, that's being very specific, and you really don't have all the facts or the legal knowledge to say something like that. But you don't have to turn them away and say, hey, I'm not a lawyer, I don't have any information for you. What you can do is say, I can show you information that explains the eviction process, and it explains some of the options of what people can do when they get an eviction notice like this. From there, you can decide what you would like to do, and I can explain where you might be able to get more legal help. So those are two very different responses. But the legal information response is very helpful and completely within the realm of something that you can do. So I am going to now turn it over to Rebecca Stolberg, who is our expert on steps to justice.
Hi, everyone, and thanks to Michelle for telling us all that great information about legal information and the difference between legal information and legal advice. As Fiona mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, my name is Rebecca Stolberg, and I am a lawyer and project manager for Steps to Justice. And I just want to say before I get started, if you have any questions on my presentation as I'm going along, feel free to put them into the chat. I don't mind when someone interrupts me, so if I say something and you have any follow-up questions, you can let me know. So a bit of background, I think, is necessary, some context for Steps to Justice as a project. So as Michelle mentioned, CLEO has been working in legal information for many, many years and has lots of great print resources and other websites for people to access that legal information from. We know that more and more people are turning to the internet to find information about their legal problems. The issue with that is there is a lot of information on the internet on legal issues. Not all of it is relevant, not all of it is accurate, and it's hard for people to decipher the good from the bad. So that's where Steps to Justice comes in. We wanted to create an online legal resource for Ontarians that they can trust, that they know is relevant to them as Ontarians, and is written and reviewed by lawyers. We wanted Steps to Justice to become this brand that signifies reliable legal information. Steps to Justice is for low to moderate income people who have access to the internet and are comfortable using either their computer or mobile device to access the site. But it's also for trusted intermediaries like yourselves. These are frontline workers, community workers who work directly with the public, who aren't necessarily trained in any one area of the law, but do come into contact with people who have legal issues. And now they have a place to refer their clients to and a site that they can review with their clients. And we hope that you all do that with Steps to Justice after we're done the presentation today. When we were going about creating Steps to Justice, there were a few guiding principles that we followed in creating the resource. We wanted it to be practical and user-focused. We didn't want to talk about different areas of the law in an academic way. We really wanted to highlight commonly asked legal questions and provide answers and next steps that people could take to either address or avoid their legal issues. All the content on the site is written at a grade 8 reading level, and we bring in existing resources, forms, checklists, tools that have been created by other legal clinics, government agencies, and community organizations, because these are valuable resources and tools, and we want users of Steps to Justice to be able to access them easily by linking out to them throughout our content. The last guiding principle that we followed in creating Steps to Justice is collaboration with justice sector organizations. And that happened at two different levels. So at one level, we have content committees made up of legal experts from different areas of the law. These are government lawyers, community workers, clinic lawyers and workers, and private sector lawyers who have come together to inform and write and review the legal information on the site. We really wanted this to be a collaborative effort amongst justice sector organizations in Ontario. And on a higher level, Steps to Justice is a collaboration of Ontario's leading justice sector organizations. Our partners are listed on our homepage. Their logos are there. Some that I can mention now are Legal Aid Ontario, Law Society of Upper Canada, the Social Justice Tribunals of Ontario, and the Ministry of the Attorney General. All of these partners came together, recognized that there was a need for reliable legal information written in this style to exist on the internet, and instead of each one of these organizations producing their own website, we came together to create Steps to Justice. The structure of the content, as I mentioned before, addresses common legal questions. Right now we have approximately 400 questions and 8 different legal topics. Under each question and answer, there are 3 to 5 next steps that are flexible depending on the user's comfort level and situation. And they give people action items that they can take to either address or avoid their legal issues. As I mentioned before, we integrate links to great resources as well as referral information to services throughout the content. We also offer a weekday live chat, and this is a Ask the Librarian function, so it's not a mechanism for legal advice. Between 11 and 1, there is someone on the other end of the chat icon who can help direct people to the information that they're looking for on the site. So if someone can't find something they're looking for, they can message in the chat and get help finding what they're looking for. Lastly, we also provide a glossary for different legal topics. There are certain terms in the law that could not be plain language edited. Those terms are highlighted in a yellow bubble and can be clicked on, and a definition pops up in context so that people can start to be familiar with these legal terms and understand what they mean in context of the content. The most exciting feature about Steps to Justice is its ability to be embedded on partner sites. So what embedding means is that content, our content, our legal information can live on your organization's site. This isn't simply a link that you put on your organization's site that sends users to Steps to Justice. This is the actual legal information on your site for users to click through while staying on your site. And that's really exciting, and it feeds into that idea that we want Steps to Justice to be a brand that people recognize, whether they come across our content on Steps to Justice, on their legal clinic's website, on a community organization's website, or a library website. We want them to see the Steps to Justice logo and understand that this is information that is reliable, that was written by lawyers, and that applies to them as Ontarians. There are a lot of flexible options in terms of embedding. You can embed a full legal topic, a question, or a subtopic, and there are different sizes available depending on the real estate on your site. And I'll get into a little more about embedding later and show you some examples of organizations that have already embedded our content. And lastly, the embeds are automatically updated. So if there's a change to the law, we update Steps to Justice internally at CLEO, and those updates are reflected in the embeds automatically. So you never have to worry that the legal information on your website is out of date or inaccurate. So in terms of where we are in the project, we have close to 400 questions and answers in abuse and family violence, criminal law, consumer law, employment law, family law, housing law, human rights, and social assistance. We're focusing right now on getting some more content up there, and I'll get to that in a minute. And we're also focusing on getting the word out there about the site. So hosting webinars like the one that you're taking part in right now, presenting at trainings and workshops and conferences, and that's going really well and helping to spread the word about Steps to Justice to those who need it. So going forward, we're adding new content. Just this week, employment insurance content went up. Last week, we had bail added to the site, and as well as a question on the Mother Risk Commission. We are working on new content in wills and estates and power of attorney, and we'll be adding more content to consumer law and criminal law very shortly. We've also conducted user testing on the site. So the site is really new. It only launched in January, so we decided to do some user testing to just get some feedback on the design, and we're working on implementing some changes to the design related to that feedback shortly. And as I mentioned before, we're engaging with and training community workers like yourself on how to use the site. And we are currently having the content of the site translated into French and hope to have that piece of the site up and running in the fall at some point. So how do you fit in as frontline workers? Well, firstly, we encourage you to use Steps to Justice with the public, with your clients. You can either refer them to it if they're comfortable using it on their own, or you can use it with them. You can order our promotional bookmarks or posters, and you can do that through the CLEO website where Michelle showed you before. You can also consider embedding. If your organization has a website and you feel that the public visits your website to get legal information, we're happy to help you embed a legal topic or topic, subtopic, or question onto your site. You can also share Steps to Justice with your email lists and social media or newsletters. I can help you with that. I have templates for email blasts and newsletter postings, as well as some social media posts that you can use through your Twitter or Facebook. You can also help me by suggesting training for community workers. So if you're aware of a training, a conference, or a workshop going on, even just a meeting in your organization with frontline workers who would benefit from knowing about this resource and having training on it, please reach out and let me know. And I see here there's a question. Is there a cost for embedding, or is it free? The answer to that question is it's free. So now I'll take you to the site and show you what I've just been speaking about. So this is our home page, and there are 3 different ways that you can navigate to our legal content from the home page. The first way is by legal topic. So if you know the legal topic that your client's question falls under, you can click on one of the legal topics right there in that box in the center of the page. The second way that you can navigate to our content is by using our search bar. So there's a search bar in the middle of the home page as well as on the top of the home page. They're the same search bars. Sorry, there is another question in the chat. Are the workshops free as well? Yes, they are free as well. So you can use either search bar. You can put a question in there or simply a keyword, and it produces search results similar to Google, except that it's just combing the site. It's not combing the entire internet. And the third way to access our content is through our keyword bubbles. And so this is the bottom half of our homepage. And these keyword bubbles are based on the most commonly searched terms. They change every so often. And so if someone comes to the homepage and they know that their issue has to do with bed bugs, for example, and they see that we have a keyword bubble for bed bugs, they can click on that keyword bubble and it will take them to our content about bed bugs. So I'm just going to navigate through the site with you using the first method that I mentioned, which is through the legal topics. So let's say we knew that the issue we were dealing with had to do with family law. So we would click on family law in the legal topic box, which would bring you to this page, which is our subtopic page. So these are all the subtopics that exist under family law. And perhaps our issue has to do with child support. So let's click on child support, and it will take you to this page, which sets out all the questions that are relevant to child support. And some of our subtopics, there are many questions to choose from. And a way to help you to navigate through all those questions is by clicking on one of the filters in those bubbles at the top. So if you know, for example, your question has to do with calculating child support, you might want to click on that filter that says calculating child support, and it will shorten the list of questions to only those that have to do with calculating child support. Let's say we clicked on how much child support must be paid. So it would bring you to this page, which is our answer page. So you can see down the right-hand side of the page is the answer to our question. Down the left-hand side of the page, which I'm showing you now, are the next steps that you can take to either address or avoid the legal issue. So the way that these pages are meant to be read is you read the answer first, and then you go through the steps in order from 1 to 5 or 1 to 3, however many steps are there. At the bottom of each step is something we called You May Also Need. And these are links, direct links to either tools, forms, or fact sheets that have to do with the content you've just read. So if you, for example, needed a child support online calculator because we're in the subtopic on child support and we're in a question that says how much child support must be paid, and we want to use that calculator, we can click on it and it will take us to that calculator. As I mentioned before, we weren't able to plain language edit all of our legal terms. And so this is an example of a glossary bubble or glossary definition. So this is for the term application. So you can see those terms on this page, landlord-tenant board, order, and application are in a faint yellow bubble. That identifies for the user that particular term is defined in the glossary. So you can click on that term and a definition will pop up as you're seeing right now for application. On our question and answer pages, we also have services referrals. So down the left-hand side of the page, right after the next steps, We have related services if someone needs more help, either legal advice or other services about that particular subject matter. At the bottom of our answer pages are related questions. So we understand that often learning more about a legal issue spurs more questions. And we've handpicked related questions that someone may still have unanswered after reading one of our question answers. So you can scroll to the bottom of the page and see if any of those related questions are in your mind at the time and you need answered. You can click on them and they will take you to the answer and next steps for those questions. Now I'm going to take you back to the home page and guide you very quickly through a search. So as I mentioned before, there's a search bar in the middle of the home page as well as the top of the website. And the top website search follows you throughout your navigation of the site. So you can always turn to that if you're not finding what you're looking for through another method. So you can put in a keyword, you can put in your question, very similar to how you would do a Google search. We have suggested questions for you that pop up, similar to the way that Google works when they suggest questions to put into the Google search. Once you put your search term or question in, it will take you to this page, which is the search results page, which is a list of relevant content that had to do with the keyword or question that you entered into the search bar. This is our live chat. So the live chat is at the bottom right-hand corner of the page. As I mentioned before, this is an Ask the Librarian function. And so if you're not finding the content that you're looking for and it's between 11 and 1 on a weekday, you can put your question into the chat and someone will help you find it on the site. Now going back to the home page, I'm going to guide you through the embedding. So we're at the home page, and in the center of the home page there's a square that says embed this content on your website. If you look at the top right-hand corner of the home page, there's also another link that says embed our content. You can also click there. This will bring you to this page, and what this page does is explain a bit more about embedding. There's a short video there that you can watch if you're finding it hard to understand what embedding is. And it guides you through the steps you can take to embed. It's a very simple process. The first step is to register as a user by inputting your name, your organization's name, and your email address, and we will send you a username and password to log in to the embedding tool. And once you're at the embedding tool, you'll be able to select what legal topic, subtopic, or question you want to embed, whether you want to embed a full-sized embed or a sidebar embed, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. And I should mention also that we provide technical support, so you shouldn't need it because this tool is actually very, very user-friendly. But should you need technical support, we do have someone who can help you with that. And we also have someone to help you identify a place on your site where the legal content could go. So if you're thinking about your website and you're thinking, oh, I don't even know where I would put this legal information, we provide a service to help you identify where that legal information could go. So this is a legal topic embed, and this is a full-page legal topic embed. So if some organization wanted housing law, and they were, let's say, just focused in housing law, and that's what they wanted, this is what a legal topic housing embed would look like. And as you can see, it shows all of the subtopics under housing law. But perhaps you want a subtopic embed. So let's say an organization only wanted information about paying rent. They can embed just that subtopic, which has all the relevant questions to paying rent. Or perhaps the organization wants something even more specific and they want to just answer one question that constantly comes up in their work. So this is an example of a question answer embed. this is the question, how much can my rent go up? And the person who's using this embed stays on the website that they're on when navigating through the information. So it's not this confusing link that sends them back to Steps to Justice. If you're doing a full page embed, you're navigating through the content on the community organization site that you came to as a user. So showing you a few examples of some organizations that have already embedded. So this is Neighborhood Legal Services. It's a legal clinic. And they have done a sidebar embed. So you can see down the right-hand side of the page, it says need help with housing law, and there's a sidebar embed there of the housing law legal topic. And they've done it this way because they decided they didn't want a full page view of this subtopic. And I have a question here through the chat. It says, we have multiple services including housing, employment, and justice. Can we embed in more than one place of our website? Yes, absolutely you can. We've had organizations actually embed every single one of our legal topics. And we can, as I said before, help you to figure out where that can go on your website. So just to show you another example, this is the Scarborough Community Legal Services website. They decided to do employment and work, and this is a full page embed on employment and work. If you were to click on one of the subtopics, again, you would stay on the Scarborough Community Legal Services website. This is the Victim Justice Network website. They wanted only information that had to do with partner abuse, so they did a subtopic embed of our partner abuse content. And if you clicked on See All, it would scroll down and show you all the questions under partner abuse. So as long as no one has any more questions, I'm going to move on to the case scenario portion of the presentation. And this is an interactive exercise. So I've put together 3 case scenarios, and I'll get to those in a second. I'll read them out loud. And then what I want you to do is help me find the answer to the legal questions that you can identify in the case scenario. So you can tell me how you would navigate the website. You can tell me what legal topic you would look under, or what search you would do. But it is interactive, so please put your comments into the comment chat box, and we'll work together to find the answers that we are looking for. So our first scenario, and I'll give you a few minutes or probably just a minute to digest this. So my boss told me that I need to work on Good Friday. He said that because I don't celebrate Easter and business is bad, he doesn't have to pay me any extra for working on this holiday. This doesn't seem fair. So I'll leave that up there for another 15 seconds or so. So I want you to think about what legal issues are potentially coming up here for this person, and what legal topic maybe this question falls under on the site.
I'm seeing lots of responses for employment and work and employment standards and human rights.
Okay, so I'm going to take you to the live site now. And so employment and work, that was one of the suggestions. So if we went to employment and work, does anyone know what subtopic they would probably look under? Remember, this is about getting paid. This worker's being told that they have to work on potentially a public holiday. I'm not sure if it is. So any subtopic you think could be relevant?
People are saying getting paid, and also
Great.
Human rights at work.
Okay, so those are both great answers. So let's do getting paid first. So we're in getting paid, and here are all the questions that have to do with getting paid. There's a lot of them. You can either tell me what question you think would have the answer in it, or tell me the filter that you think might be helpful to use.
Vacations and holiday pay, and another person jumped right to the question, which is, does an employer have to pay me for public holidays?
Great. So let's try the filter. I've just pressed the vacation and holiday pay filter. And does my employer have to pay me for public holidays? Clicking on that, and here's your answer and your next steps. And if we look right here, we can see that Good Friday is a public holiday. So someone else mentioned looking in human rights at work, and that's great because that was a more subtle legal issue in this scenario. So perhaps this person was discriminated against because their boss was treating them differently because they don't celebrate Easter. And so if we were to look in the Human Rights at Work section, we can read about all about human rights at work issues and find a question that's relevant to our issue. So if I went to how do I make a claim at the Human Rights Tribunal, it gets into what discrimination is, and you can see if that person's situation falls under the definition for discrimination. Another option that we didn't do in this example was using the search bar. So I just want to show you how this would work. If I put in Good Friday, because let's just say that that's really what, as a worker, that's what stood out to me. I don't know if Good Friday is a public holiday, and I'm not really sure how my employer should treat public holidays. We could put Good Friday into the search bar, press enter, and the first question that comes up is, do I have to work on public holidays, which is the question that provided us with the answer before when we were navigating through the legal topics. So I'm just going to go to our second scenario now. I got hurt at work slipping on water. My boss says that I can take a few weeks off with sick leave. She says I don't need to file a claim for workers' compensation because sick pay will cover my time off. So I'm going to leave that up there. And I'm waiting for you to just read that, identify what legal topic you think this issue falls under, what potential subtopic you think could be coming up for this particular worker, and then I'll take you to the live site.
So we're seeing some information about injured at work, employment standards, workers' comp, different things coming up there.
Great. So I'm going to take you back to the home page. So if we went to our employment and work section, and then we went to injured at work, remember this person slipped on water, and they were hurt while they were at work. And then once we are here, there should be a question that's very specific to the issue that this person is experiencing. So remember, their employer has said you don't have to apply for workers' compensation. You should take sick pay. So can anyone see a question that maybe has the answer to this person's? Fiona, are we getting any comments?
We have some comments previous just about just sort of suggestions of subjective imagine people are just taking a second. There we go. Employer report a work injury. So yes, we're seeing there's the question underneath. There is a question, what if my employer is supposed to do after I report a work injury? And then also the what if my employer wants me to take wages or sick pay instead of making a workers' compensation claim.
Great. So that question that Fiona just mentioned, what if my employer wants me to take wages or sick pay instead of making a workers' compensation claim, is very relevant for this particular person whose employer is telling them just that, don't apply for workers' compensation, you should use sick pay instead. This sort of gives you an overview and an answer. But there's really no wrong answer. So that's why these related questions are so important. So you may read about that very specific situation, but then decide, you know what, how and when must I report a workplace injury or accident? I need to know the answer to that. Or how do I know if I'm covered by workers' compensation benefits? So you can see why the related questions are really, really useful. So we're back at employment at work. And is there any other subtopics that you think might be?
There's a how and when must I report? There's a question that someone suggested there, but from the previous.
Yeah. I'm back to the subtopic page, so if anyone has any other ideas
Safety
about
at work.
Safety at work, exactly. So safety at work speaks more to the employer's role in keeping a safe workplace and what you can do as a worker if you feel that your workplace is unsafe. So this is definitely a subtopic you may want to explore. Then I'll show you really quickly back to the home page. Perhaps what stood out to that worker was the fact that they were told to take sick leave. So if they came to the home page and they saw that we had a keyword bubble that said sick leave, they might click that. And it takes you to this page, which is all our questions that are relevant to sick leave. And we can see right here, what if my employer wants me to take wages or sick pay instead of making a workers' compensation claim? And that would be a very relevant question for them to get the answer to. So we don't want to make it complicated for users. We want them to be able to find the information that they're looking for, no matter how their brain works and what keywords they're pulling out of their particular scenario. So lastly, I'm just going to go through one more scenario. So this is, I can't work because of my disability. I won't be able to pay my rent and feed my kids. I'm really stressed. What can I do? So I'm going to leave that there just for a few seconds. There are a few things to unpack. And now I'm going to go to the site. So I see that someone had mentioned social assistance. So I'm going to go back to the home page and click on social assistance. And you can see in social assistance we have child tax benefits, Ontario Disability Support Program, and Ontario Works. So this particular scenario, the person can't work because their disability. So they would want to click on Ontario Disability Support Program. And they have all the information that they're going to need here on applying, on getting help, on whether perhaps their disability requires them to have a special diet and they want to see if that would be covered, medical reviews, what if they come into an inheritance or they have assets. There's a lot of information here under ODSP, and there are a lot of filters to use to help you navigate our social assistance content. So there's,
and just to let you know, some folks have also suggested, because the scenario involved concern about paying rent, that people were also wondering about rent payments and tenant information.
Yep.
So some folks suggested looking there.
That's great. So let's go to housing law. And what subtopic would we be looking at?
Paying rent is being suggested.
Paying rent. So this person is concerned about paying rent. And so if we went to paying rent and we see this filter, I'm behind or unable to pay my rent, maybe we want to click that. And now this person will understand what can happen if I'm behind in my rent, and what can my landlord do if I owe rent. And this is going to be really helpful for this particular person who is experiencing significant stress, and understanding what their rights are and what their landlord's rights are in a particular situation. Just having that knowledge is really helpful in reducing that stress. The other
and somebody else
option
suggested also that getting legal help in housing law.
Absolutely. So most of our legal topics have a subtopic that says something like getting legal help in housing law or getting help in employment law, and we always have the services, which I'm circling right now with my mouse, that are next to the questions, and they're always relevant to whatever topic and subtopic you happen to be reading content in. So this get help from someone about this topic is here. You could also click on the subtopic, which we just did. And if we went to a question and answer, again, just to remind you, the services are there on the left-hand side of the page beside every question and answer. Just to show you really, really quick, if we had perhaps known that this person should look into applying for ODSP, that's one of our keyword bubbles. If I'd clicked on that, it would take us to this page, which is our information about ODSP. You may have also put in a search term, and that could have guided you to the information. The idea being we want to make it as easy as possible for people to find the information that they're looking for, no matter what tool or navigation they feel comfortable using. So that's it for us today. Thank you so much for participating. If you have any other questions, please put them into the chat now. I'm happy to answer some questions before we go. It says, is this information available in multiple languages? Very good question. So our Steps to Justice information right now is only available in English. It's currently being translated into French, and we hope to have that ready for the fall. But we have other other CLEO legal information that does come in multiple languages, and I'll let Michelle speak to that briefly.
So in terms of other languages, I guess there's two different things that I would like to mention. The first is on the CLEO site, so that was the cleo.on.ca. On that website, you can do a search for information by language. So we have several pieces which are usually fact sheets that are available in 6 additional languages to English and French. And that project was called Your Rights, Your Language, and we got funding to do that several years ago. And then as well, we talked a little bit about your legal rights, and we said that there were resources from different organizations across Ontario, and on that site you can also do a search by language. So while those resources are mostly resources other than CLEOs, although CLEOs are all on there, that if you are looking for information in another language, that Your Legal Rights is a very good source to find information in other languages. It won't be formatted in the Steps to Justice approach, in that next steps, that really user-friendly approach, but some of that information will be really useful as well.
There was also a question about there's just a question about the hours for live chat. And also just generally whether there's any opportunity or access to phone-based support.
So the live chat, as I mentioned, is available between 11 and 1 on weekdays. If we're not there, you can still email us through the Contact Us field or even the chat field, and we'll get back to you within 2 business days. Again, this is not for legal advice. This is simply to show you where on the site you can access the information that's relevant to your issue. There's also a question here, will a recorded version of today's webinar be available to service providers? Yes, Fiona will be sending that out to everyone in here, a recording of today after this presentation.
And the recording will also be found on Your Legal Rights, as well as the Plea Learning Exchange. These are 2 of CLEO's other websites, which you can find from the CLEO site. So the recording will be found in those 2 places as well. Sorry, so there's another question. Would it be considered giving advice if we were to read off or interpret to a client what it says on the website? So as long as you're sticking to the exact information, what you can say is, this is information that I have on, X, Y, or Z. What you can't say with full legal knowledge is whether that information applies in their specific circumstances. So that's where it's different. You have to let them, either figure out whether the information applies to them or help them get some legal help, a legal service that will help them to determine whether that information that you've read to them or interpreted for them actually applies in their specific situation.
And I just want to mention as sort of a closing point, I mentioned earlier on in the webinar that we really want you to be in touch with us and I want to be able to support your work and support your ability to get the word out about this resource. So if there are any trainings coming up, workshops, meetings, newsletters, conferences, anything you can think of, please get in touch with me. My information is there, my email and my phone number. Get in touch with me. We'll have a chat, and we'll see how we can collaborate on things. So there's a question: when embedding on a website with a quick exit for safety reasons, would the information be hidden or erased from browser history for clients experiencing domestic violence? Fiona, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah. I'll answer that question just because I'm sort of the embedding person here at CLEO. So when you embed information on a third-party website, that is not shown in browser history, of course, because if that website you were on is quickly erased, certainly our information which would have displayed on the page that was erased from browser history would be gone. That being said, we are also looking into adding a close this site, get out of here, hide me kind of thing on Steps to Justice. We have it on Your Legal Rights because this issue was raised in the past. I mean, the information on our site is not specific to domestic violence, but there's still implications for lots of reasons about wanting to make a quick exit. So we're looking into adding that feature, and we got good feedback from people that would be useful. But certainly if our information is on another site and that site has that feature, then our information wouldn't be accessible somehow separately.
Thanks, Fiona. We have a question here. How many people do we need to organize a workshop? So we asked for there to be about 20 people present for the workshop. You can open your workshops up to other community organizations perhaps that you work with in order to get those numbers. I can attend in person or by webinar similar to this. I should mention, I'm not sure if any of you on here are from Ottawa, but I will actually be holding 4 in-person workshops in Ottawa between July 11th and 13th, and they're open to any community organizations to attend. So if you are in the Ottawa area and you feel that you can't get 20 people together, you can give me a shout and I can register you for one of those in-person workshops in Ottawa between July 11th and 13th.
And sorry, this is Michelle. I just also wanted to mention that I do a slightly longer workshop, a 3-hour workshop. Also, I can organize to come to you in person. It obviously, depends on how far the travel is and the dates, but we can usually make it work. And this longer workshop unpacks the ideas of legal information, also talks about detecting legal problems and how to do that. We talk about lots of different sources of legal information, obviously focusing on Steps to Justice, but we do mention some other sources. And we talk a lot about how to give a good referral and what that means and what the different options are for referral. So if you are interested in having me come to do a workshop, you can also, with about 20 people as a minimum, you can email me and my email's there, or you can also go onto the CLEO site and there is a tab called Workshops and Webinars, and you can read a little bit more about them.
All right, I'm just going to sign off now. Just so you know, you'll be sent a survey in about 6 weeks just to give us some feedback about this presentation. We'd love to hear from you so that we can make sure the presentation is as tailored to your work as possible. And thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today, and we hope that you get in touch about Steps to Justice or other presentations. We'd love to hear from you, and thanks again for spending time with us today.
Thank you very much, and on behalf of all of us at CLEO, I'm going to say goodbye and remind you that there's a survey about to pop up on your screen. If you could just take a few seconds to give us some feedback, it helps us improve workshops like this. And thanks very much. Bye-bye.